Welcome back to Ride and Glide. Over the past few years, we've sold thousands of electric vehicles of all different shapes and sizes to literally thousands and thousands of customers. We get asked a lot of questions when customers are buying these products, so we thought we'd go through the top 5 most asked questions when customers are buying an e-scooter. So, question 1, what is the best scooter that I can get? Well, this is quite a general question, so it's not really answerable until we've got more information from the customer. So for example, what is your budget? That is so important because if someone just says, what's the best scooter you can buy? We can say, well, it's this, £5,000, whatever. Whereas they might say, oh, well, actually my budget's only £500. So really they're saying, what's the best scooter I can buy for the money I've got? So that's really important. Secondly, and almost more importantly sometimes, what are you going to be using the scooter for? So if you work on a farm, say, and you need to be going across all of your land, lots of range, you've got hills, lots of power, you're going to get wet, so it needs a really strong waterproof or IP rating, as you see in the last video we've done. You are going to need something like, say, a Nami Burney. Amazing suspension, big deck, off-road wheels, loads of power, loads of range, really good waterproof rating. Now, if you are, say, working on a big campus and you need to get about the campus, but it's smooth, hard ground, you might need to fold it up, carry it upstairs to your office to store it, something like that, it's going to be a completely different scooter. So you might be looking at something more like a Xiaomi or an Apollo Pro. And that price range then comes in as well. So you've got the Nami, say, 3,200 or Apollo Pro around sort of £500–600. So they're really, really important questions to ask when someone says, what's your best scooter? So it really comes down to what do you use it for the most and what is your budget? And that way we can really narrow down which scooter it is that's going to be best for you. Question 2, and this is a big one. Are scooters legal in the UK? Well, technically, yes, they are legal. You can buy scooters in the UK. You can rent scooters in the UK, but you can't ride a privately owned e-scooter. Currently, as of the 19th of January 2022, you can't ride a privately owned e-scooter on public property, so on roads, pavements, that kind of thing. You can only use them on private land. You can, however, rent a scooter from one of the government trial schemes, which are across the country, and they're conducting tests at the moment to basically facilitate the integration of scooters into the transport network safely. So they're running these tests, collecting data, and then once they've got that data, they will work out how scooters, including private scooters, will be able to be included, like bikes, motorbikes, cars, in those types of scenarios. This has just been extended, the first trials, for another 6 months, so we'll wait and see what happens, but it's very, very positive. Now, when we say the UK, obviously we've got Ireland as well, Scotland. Currently, the rules are the same. In Europe, however, many countries you're allowed to ride e-scooters. They have different rules, motor power, age of rider, that kind of thing. But we'll take Germany as an example. We often follow Germany in our legislation. We're quite similar, and they often do something first and then we follow. Their rules are 20-kilometre maximum speed. You have to be 14. You have to have a registration plate and insurance. Now, I'm not sure we're going to go down that route, but we very well may do. You have to have lights, like you do on a bicycle or even on a moped to make it safe. Now, you have to also use bike trails or bike paths. If they are not available, you can go on the road, but it's only as a last resort. So obviously in Germany, they're fairly forward-thinking, but also very focused on safety. A lot of other countries have upped that speed limit, say 25 kilometres now, it's more like 15 mile per hour. But we'll see what we do, but it's all very positive. So just to conclude, currently e-scooters are not legal on public land unless you're renting them through a government scheme, but they are legal to ride on private land, off-roading, that type of thing. Question 3, we get asked this all the time, can I ride this scooter in the rain? Well, first of all, from Ride and Glide, we like to say riding any scooter in the rain is pretty dangerous. So we wouldn't advise that. But if you do get caught out in wet conditions, then again, it really depends on which scooter you've purchased. So if you look at our IP video, which we've just done on water resistant ratings, you can go into a bit more of a deep dive there. But generally speaking, if someone asks us, is it waterproof? You have to look at a few factors. Firstly, waterproof is a term that isn't really accurate. Water resistant is a much more accurate term. So they have different ratings, IP54, IP55, that type of thing. Waterproof would mean no water can get into it in any scenario, and that's just not the case. So really, when we're talking about scooters, we're talking about light rain, even up to heavy rain. We're not really submerging it, you know, some small puddles, that type of thing. So firstly, you've got to look for a scooter with an IP rating, a genuine IP rating, from a proper company. So make sure it's a well-known manufacturer or a well-known retailer that you're using. Secondly, speak to people. Make sure you're talking to people who've ridden the scooter, who've sold the scooter, that you trust, and then you'll know if that waterproof rating is genuine or not. Thirdly, make sure you can get extra grippy tyres on it. So if you've got very slick tyres, no matter if it's got an IP rating or not, you're still going to be sliding around all over the place. Also, make sure the deck has a good enough grip on it for your feet, or your feet will be sliding around everywhere when it gets wet, no matter how waterproof it is again. And also make sure you have a progressive throttle. So what I mean by that is you don't want a throttle that immediately goes full power when you put your trigger finger on it. You know, there are people like that, you know, people that love Dualtrons, caboose, that kind of stuff, they love that immediate engagement. But what it does when you're in wet conditions is it spins both the wheels, or if you've got a single motor, spins one of the wheels. That can also be quite dangerous when it's wet. So on top of the IP rating, make sure you look out for those things as well. But speak to the people who are selling it. Make sure you get anecdotal advice for people who've used them and have had problems or not had problems, as it may be. Will this scooter get me up a hill? There are so many variables to consider when someone asks that question, but it is asked all the time. Now, let's just break the answer down a little bit. Okay, so first of all, let's take one variable, which is rider weight. So on an averagely sized hill, whatever that may be, whatever gradient that may be, say a 70 kg rider was on a specific scooter, that may get them up that hill. If you put a 110 kg rider on the same scooter, on the same hill, it may not get them up that hill. So first of all, we need to know rider weight. Secondly, we need to know the hill gradient. We're not going to be able to do that calculation for you, but the steeper the hill, the harder it is going to be for a scooter to get you up there. The heavier you are, the harder it is going to be for a scooter to get you up there. Therefore, the heavier you are, you need a more powerful scooter. Having a more powerful scooter means that you have bigger motors generally, bigger battery generally, which then means a bigger chassis generally. And that generally means, and I've said that a load of times, that it's going to be a lot heavier. So what that does is now you've got this big heavy scooter that will pull you up the hill, but if you need it to also be portable, you've now got a really heavy scooter. So there's always a balance. You can't have, at the moment, a very powerful scooter that is also very light. It doesn't really work like that because of the size, basically, and the weight of the products that are used. Now, what I would say is you can often tell from the wattage of a motor, generally, or roughly, I should say, how you're going to be able to go up that hill. So if you have a 250 or 350 watt motor, it's generally a smaller scooter. It might be able to take very slight gradients, you know, something like a Xiaomi. It might be able to take very slight gradients, but it's not going to, no matter what weight you are, really get you up a steep hill unless you're really, really light. So if you move up from there, you get sort of a 500 watt marker. They're getting a bit more powerful. You know, there's some 9 bots in that range, the L9 in that range, a bit steeper hills that they can take. I would suggest from our experience that 1,000 watts really is the minimum you want if you want to be able to actually get pulled up hills rather than having to sort of make the scooter work a lot harder. And also having dual motors makes a big difference. If you're putting all of that pressure on one single motor, that is where you'll get motor failure or controller failure, that kind of thing, especially if you're a heavier person as well and you're pushing the scooter to its limit. So dual motor, just over 1,000 watts, you're looking at something like a Set 9 Plus or an Apollo Ghost, that type of thing. But you're also then getting into a weight bracket that is just on the verge, just over 20 kilos, just on the verge of, you don't want to be carrying much heavier than that around if you are lifting upstairs and that kind of thing. So if weight isn't a problem to you, and possibly money, then that really opens up the market to what will take you up a hill. The next bracket up is like Visette 10 Plus, Apollo Phantom, that type of scooter, dual motored, powerful, and they're going to take you up most hills. You know, people up to say 120 kilos, which is what most of the scooter companies say is their maximum limit for a rider. Then if you really want to go crazy, then you can look at things like Dualtron Ultra 2s, Thunder 2s, you've got the Nami Bernie. These are scooters that are going to attack really steep terrain, even with heavy riders on. Now, that doesn't mean they can take any hill in the world, but that does mean that they can really handle very steep inclines. That's what they're designed for. But they're big scooters, they've got big motors, big batteries, really big frames, and they're built for that. So they're super heavy. But like I said, if weight isn't a problem, then you're at that end, you are absolutely fine, but the cost goes up as well. And the batteries are bigger, the motors are bigger, the whole frame is bigger, costs go up. So it really depends. When someone says, can I get up a hill? How heavy are you? How steep is the hill? What scooter are you using? What wattage are you using? What's the weather like? You know, that even can be a factor. What's the wind like at the time? What are the ground conditions like? Is it wet? That type of thing. It all makes a difference. So often people want to try and find something that fits into both categories. So I can carry it, but it just gets me up. You're looking in that dual motor, smaller dual motor bracket, Visette 9 Plus, that kind of thing. If you don't care at all, you just want the most powerful, you're at the Nami end of the market, you know, but there is a cost implication because of that. Hopefully that helps. Question 5, a question probably asked by every person that that buys a scooter from us. Does the scooter actually go the range that it says it goes on the advertisement? This is a really tricky one. I have to say that about every question, but it is difficult to answer because manufacturers, we try and work with honest manufacturers as best we can, and we want to be honest to the customers. We don't want people phoning back saying, well, it doesn't do what it said it did. But when a new product comes out, we are given an amount of information from a manufacturer or a distributor, and we have to put that information out. That's all we know. So usually we'll say estimated or estimated speed, estimated range. People want to buy products early, they want to pre-order them, they want to be the first to have them. So that's all of the information we have. We haven't tested it, the manufacturer generally tests it. But the manufacturers are often based in warmer climates. They have very smooth ground they're testing on, and they use very lightweight riders. They also ride at fairly low speeds. All of that adds to probably getting the maximum range you can possibly get. And that's what they will advertise. Because, you know, who wouldn't do that? But in reality, we're not all 60 kilograms. You know, we all weigh a bit more than that, or some of us do. We don't have very warm weather here all the time. And the ground conditions are anything but smooth in most cases I found in the UK. So that is going to have a major effect on the range. What we do is when we get the scooters in, we try and range test them as quickly as we possibly can to make sure that we've got an accurate test. We use customers who've bought them and get information back from them to make sure that we're in the right ballpark as well, because, you know, we want to see different rider weights, where people are riding them, hills, that kind of thing. You know, hills are going to have a massive impact on your range as well. Not only that, warm countries do give you the most range from a battery, but if it's very cold, that also has a really debilitating effect on a battery. So in under, say, 4 degrees, you can quarter your range on a vehicle. I mean, literally, say it was 50 miles and it would go down to under, you know, 10, just over 10 miles sometimes. It can really drain it that quickly. So that's really important to consider. So when we're talking about range, we're often talking about battery size. Obviously the motors draw the power, but we generally look at the battery size. And that usually you get a voltage and an ampage figure. So for example, you might have a 60 volt battery, which would be a 66.7 volt output, but a 60 volt battery and a 15 amp hours. So 60 volts, 15 amp hours. If you times them together, so volts times amps, you get the watt hours. So 60 times 15 is 900. So it would be a 900 watt hour battery. Now, generally speaking, the more watt hours, the larger the range. Obviously, like I said, that also depends on the motors and controllers, how efficiently they're using that battery power and how quickly it's being drawn. But generally speaking, you can use that to show if it's larger or more watt hours, it should go further. Less watt hours should have less range. Two other factors when talking about range are battery quality. So when you're buying a scooter, make sure you are buying a scooter with a decent battery, or at least a scooter that has come from a decent manufacturer or a decent retailer and there's history to it. There are a lot of cloned scooters on the market, so companies will look at a scooter, clone it, but not use the same components, and that can lead to them putting lower quality components in for a number of reasons, but including batteries, which then can degrade quicker and just not give the same performance. So that's something to look out for. Also, as your battery gets older, it does start to deteriorate. That usually takes a year to 2 years, depending on how many times you're charging your battery and the quality of your battery. Higher the quality, the longer it's going to last generally. But as they do get older, you will notice a slight decline in battery life. That is normal, can't be helped. But usually they will last a good few years. So don't worry, you've still got 5 years plus out of a battery, generally speaking. So just to conclude that question, which is, does it go the range that it says it does? Always, if you can, find out the information from the retailer or from people who've already ridden them. That is the best way to find out if a figure that is on the internet or in the shop or in a brochure, or wherever you've seen it, is correct. Now, like I said, we as a company, as soon as we get scooters in, we test them. But we test them with a rider at probably 85 to 90 kilos. We test them on as flat a ground as we can get, and we test them in the conditions on the day. So obviously you can't just keep running tests. They take absolutely hours, cost a fortune. So we give the information, and we say that, with the information that we put out. If we don't have time to put a test, and obviously if you're a different weight and you're in different conditions, you will get slightly different readings. If we don't have the time to do that, or we haven't even had the product in yet, then we go with the manufacturer's estimations, and they can be accurate, and they can also be, as we found out, a little bit off. So just ask as many questions as you want to make sure you're getting as much information as possible. Thank you for watching. Hopefully that was informative. If you liked it, please like the video, subscribe to our channel. We're always trying to put out useful information for everyone about all types of electric products, one wheels, EUCs, bikes, scooters, obviously we're talking about today. And yeah, if you want any more information, go to the website, www.rideandglide.co.uk. Give us a call, give us a live chat, get us on email. We're always available. If you have any questions that we didn't answer in this and you just want to ask them down below. We will reply to you as quick as we possibly can. But once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.